not too stressful, so we're really grateful that you're all here. Okay, today marks a first for Filipino families as we introduce to you the coming together of industry experts, key experts, and parent thought leaders to empower Filipino families to live a life without hesitation. And what does that mean, live a life without hesitation? I was thinking about it earlier, and I think it's a life that's better informed, okay? And each one of us here will agree that giving birth is probably one of the most amazing miracles of life. I know from my experience, the time that I met my baby for the first time with this amazing amount of love that washes over you, it's really a magical experience. But before that, we have those 40 weeks of pregnancy, right? That wherein, of course, you're happy and then all the stress comes in and you're worried as a mother about the well-being of your child. You don't know about yourself as well. I was actually diagnosed with gestational diabetes, so of course for me Google was my best friend and worst enemy, and I was always stressed and worried about what would happen to us, because frankly, pregnancy, although it's a beautiful thing, it also puts both mother and baby at risk, okay? So I know I'm not alone, and that maternal health issues continue to be a national pressing concern for Filipino families. And this is the exact reason why we're here today with our friends from FWD, which is the fastest growing insurance company in this country, and of course the DOH with key health experts Dr. Eric Tayag, Dr. Blanca de Guia, and of course celebrity mommy Ms. Rica Paralejo Bonifacio, so that we can exchange insights and really talk about this issue and start addressing maternal health as a true pressing concern for us. And because, of course, this advocacy is all about building a community. I know for me, this was very important when I was pregnant. I would go online, research, go into forums. So kindly use the hashtags that we have here, Path to Life. Can we have the hashtags? Get Ready to Live, hashtag Get Ready to Live, and hashtag Path to Life. Okay, this is really important, and the reason why we're doing this here is because we want to get the word out, and that's why we have you guys here, and we're very grateful again for your presence. So I'm sure you're all looking forward to hearing about what all of this is today, and to get an idea about what this dynamic initiative is all about. So I would like to introduce the esteemed representatives of the Path to Life Consortium. First, we have our first subject matter expert, Dr. Enrique Tayag, Director 4 of the Department of Health, Bureau of Local Health Systems Development. Dr. Tayag is known to us as the longtime champion of public health and the current spokesperson of DOH. He's in charge of strengthening regional capacities to support and assist local health systems. Thank you, Dr. Tayag. Next up is another subject matter expert. We have Dr. Blanca de Guia, an accomplished gynecologist and maternal health expert with over 20 years of experience in the field. Apart from this, she's also the executive director of the Foundation for Reproductive Care, Inc., an organization that unites, generates, and coordinates efforts and resources to promote the reproductive health of Filipino women. Dr. De Guia's expertise and valued insights will help us get a clearer picture of the state of maternal health in the country today. I'm really excited to learn a little bit more about this. It's interesting because imagine, it's not just me, you're together with so many millions of other Filipinas here that are going through this. So can we give a round of applause first for our two key health experts? And of course we have the celebrity mommy, someone who is an idol for a lot of people and who inspire a lot of people. Let's invite Ms. Rica Paralejo Bonifacio to join us, please. She'll be sharing with us her own personal perspective of her journey as a mom. And of course, to complete our consortium, I'd like to invite two esteemed representatives of the FWD Philippines team, Ms. Roche Vandenbergy, Head of Marketing, and Mr. Alex Sarmiento, the Digital Channel Head for FWD. A round of applause. As this gathering marks our official national initiative in promoting healthier and safer pregnancies for Filipino families, it's only proper for us to be better informed about the state of maternal health in this country. So I'd like to start and invite our guests here to shed more light on the importance of this meeting. I'd like to start with Dr. Tayag because...
Hello, Stephanie.
Hello, good morning. Thank you so much for being here again and braving the rain.
It has remained at that number. But there's good news because to address maternal deaths, we had to provide something from the Department of Health. We wanted mothers to deliver at health facilities, not at home where the risk is higher. And so in 2010, when it was 74% of mothers who deliver at facility day in health facilities, it's now up to 84%.
Great, that's good news. I mean, that's the traditional way, right? We used to deliver at home with the
And
midwives.
the good news is many of them, now at 88%, are delivered by skilled birth attendants. But of course, we want it to be higher at 90%. But there's a reason why this happens. There are 3 delays. May I explain to the audience the 3 delays that that we have to address? The first delay is for mothers to seek care. The health-seeking behavior is important at this first delay. So if there's a delay, then mothers do not have the information that their pregnancy, they're in trouble, and so therefore they don't know, and help cannot happen at any time during their pregnancy. Now the second delay, even if they know the information, they have to reach a health facility. That's access. So that's the second delay. We have problems in transportation. We have heard stories of mothers being brought to health facilities in different types of vehicles. Sometimes they walk, and that's the sad part. The third delay is, even if they reach the health facilities, services are still not offered. Maybe there's no doctor, maybe there's no anesthesiologist, maybe there's no blood, because oftentimes it's blood that's needed. And so this is the reason why the Department of Health worked with local governments, the private sector, so that we can address the 3 delays. There's good news, there's bad news, and the same story repeats itself, and we hope we can change that.
Thank you. Yes, definitely. I've heard stories of people giving birth even on the road, on the way to the hospital, or even worse, not knowing they're pregnant until they're 7 months.
Stephanie, imagine this. We require mothers to have 4 prenatal visits. What do mothers think in between? They need someone to talk to between those periods, but they have only 4 visits, at least 4 visits. If they wanted more, they have to fall in line because the others have to complete 4 visits.
So when we talk about, let's say, making every birth count, making every birth a safer birth, what are the concrete manifestations that we need to achieve this? Apart from what's already being done, what do you think we need to make it even better?
Okay. We have to address the 3 delays.
Yes.
So mothers should get the right information. They should have access to information because their health-seeking behavior is the first step. If mothers don't know exactly what's wrong with them or what they have to do, and you cannot second guess it because it's 2 persons right away. It's the mother and the child. And I know Rika and Dr. Ligia will talk about this later. I don't want to give everything about this thing, but at the DOH, we wanted to make sure that the health-seeking behavior is really there because it starts with mothers. Even if we build health facilities, if you are not coming to us, what's the use of our health facilities? Even if we have doctors, we spend on treatment, even if we make sure that the services will be offered, if you don't come to us, so what do we do? Sometimes we take plans of going to them, especially in geographically isolated and disadvantaged areas where there are no health facilities. So the only option for the Department of Health is to make sure we send teams so that the households are visited. But this is not every day. Probably they're lucky if it's once a month. But you cannot time your pregnancy, and so therefore they need other options.
So, what are the policies now that DOH is really pushing forward to help make this happen?
Oh, we're so happy because President Duterte in his SONA just mentioned full implementation of the RH law, the reproductive health law. And we're happy about this because this is very, very important. Local governments have to toe the line, and local governments will have to work with the Department of Health so that we build facilities, we are able to build their capacity to provide these services. But of course, we want more. We want to make sure that every mother gets the services they need. We're now looking at, Stephanie, about making arrangements for these services. If I have to share a story, because I know you have many women stories. I got a call, and she said she wanted to have a prenatal visit. I said, good. So I referred it to a hospital, and I came back to her and I said, how was it? Oh, doctor, I'm still here in the hospital. Why? What time did you arrive there? I was here at 5:30 in the morning, and it's already 5:30 p.m. And it's her first prenatal visit. And she needs 3 more. So the experience was not comfortable. And I said to myself, well, the second, third, and fourth, I don't think. Yes, but I made sure that I talked to her that although it was not very convenient for her, she really has to do it. But I cannot remind her every day. So that's the sad story. Who can remind her every day that she has to do these things?
So, you mentioned earlier we have partnerships, right, with private corporations, the private sector. Could this be an opportunity to help remind these women about this or help provide the information?
That's the main reason I'm here. I'm expecting more from Rosh and her team. That's the only reason I said yes. Okay. Because they are offering an innovation. I don't want to spill the bean. And I'm sure the Department of Health is very interested about this innovation. But I also have my personal concerns. But let's not spill the bean. But the private sector can help us in our pursuit for making arrangements. It's not acceptable for the Department of, for example, that you turn away mothers just because they cannot pay, just because it doesn't allow you to get your profits. But I know the private sector is aligned with us, and our Secretary of Health, Secretary Ugel, is looking forward to working with them and working with you for this project so that we can make a change that's going to benefit many mothers in our country.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tayag. And on that note, I'd like to remind all of you that the media is also a big part of making this change. So please spread the word about what's happening today, and we'll continue to learn more about this topic with Dr. Blanca de Dia. But thank you again. I know it was also difficult to get here today. First, there are some topics here about pregnancy risks, as your expertise in gynecology, I want to know what are the pregnancy risks that a lot of Filipino mothers really need to know and above all understand, right?
Okay, good morning everyone. I guess I am the obstetrician gynecologist in this room. I'm really very happy to be part of this consortium because it's a consortium of the government, it's a consortium of the health providers, and together with this FWD, it is a very good opportunity to educate our mothers. It's really very sad when the mothers or any patient will tell you, Doktor, ikaw na po ang bahala sa akin. There are things that as patients they should know because it's very important. Because we're not, as doctors, we're not always with the mothers or their babies. So it's very important for really patients to understand what's in for them. Now, you're asking me about the risk. When patients tell me, Doktora, cesarean ba ako? I tell them, alam mo, most of the time you'll have a normal delivery. But there are some risks and complications that you ought to know. One of them, I'll name a few, for example, like abortion, which everybody knows, it's miscarriage. And then ectopic pregnancy, when your pregnancy is outside the uterus, it's life-threatening. Thirdly, if you have very common nowadays, is premature delivery. Because of the stress of the traffic, the stress of the, everything, road rage, and of course, finances, then that's one, pretty much. But you have also other things like hypertension, diabetes, and when you're already in labor, you have to have sometimes you have the problem of abnormal presentation, and abnormal labor, and fetal distress, and of course, hemorrhage after delivery. That's why it's very important for pregnant patients to be able to have a prenatal checkup, as what Dr. Tayeb told us.
To be armed with that information. And from what I gather, I think most people think, when you're pregnant, it's always the baby, the baby, the baby. But the mother is just as important as the baby, and all those risks are also to the mother because they're linked, even when you give birth. I mean, you're so crucial to your newborn, right? So that's a very interesting thing I think people need to understand. Okay, since expectant parents consult and rely on their doctors for the health of both moms and babies, what can medical practitioners do to help them prepare and ensure that they will be at their best of health at the most crucial time?
Of course, the first things that when a patient, for example, or a pregnant mother visits the doctor, what would be the outcome of this illness? So this Path to Life Consortium is like giving them a bit of what can be foreseen in pregnancy, and of course this addresses some of the things like the education that they can get from this endeavor.
You mentioned earlier laboratory tests. I think this is something that we need to inform women. You need to go do your test, right? Because sometimes there's so many that say, okay lang yan, anyway. But it's really cool. There's a
Exposed to complications later on.
So, it's really important to keep your health in check. Even if you think you're healthy, all these lab tests and follow-ups and just being informed about what could happen is really important.
Stephanie, I want to add, because you said earlier, the laboratory tests. That's so important. I think that's what I skipped when I developed anemia. Kasi parang pinapabayaan ko lang when my doctor saw me, hindi ka ba nagtataka, ang putla mo na. Sabi ko, kala ko pumuti lang ako doon. Tapos, yun pala may anemia na ako. And the reason why I didn't detect it earlier in the, the course of you developing anemia, it was because I skipped my CBC. Doon pa lang makikita mo na, di ba? They would tell you, it's supposed to be 13 and I was a 9. So, I was like, okay, medyo, na ako, talagang, may sakit na ako.
Especially, I think, with our second pregnancy, I think, alam ko na ito lahat. Right?
That's true.
Even the second baby, I umiyak, okay lang yan. I was like, don't worry, you'll be fine, right? So it's also, every pregnancy, again, is different and needs the same amount of care and attention, right? So, Rika, do you have any suggestions? Like, what do you think first-time moms or expectant families can do, to help these first-time moms or people like us who have their experience? What can they do to help the ones that are going through it for the first time?
Well, we've been talking about information, and I actually saw one of my friends here, Maricel, who is from the Parenting Emporium, and they do a great job
Hi, Marissa.
of just relaying information.
Yes,
And you know
super
what?
helpful.
I've never really liked being popular because, you don't get the privacy that you want because everywhere it's like, especially in the age of technology, picture everywhere. But then now I find a purpose in it. Now when moms, ever since I became a mom, ginagawa nga po akong doktora. Yung parang, Miss Rika, may lagnat po ang anak ko. Ano pong dapat kong ibigay sa kanya? I keep reminding them I'm not a doctor. But then I use that platform to actually give them information on where to go, what to, steps that you could take. I mean, I'm no doctor. I don't have the science for it. I don't have the knowledge for it, but at least I can point them to the right direction. And I always tell them preparation and information go together. You prepare yourself physically and mentally. Even financially. I think when I was about to give birth now, I asked my mentors. I have mentors, a couple, and I went to them and I asked, give me a list of what I have to prepare for financially in the first year. Because even when you give birth, that's already tama nga.
Okay? The third thing that they ought to know, of course, also is what are the benefits that they can get from their employer and from the government, because it's very important, to give birth is an expense, of course. We hope that it's going to be like just a small amount of money, but I know it's because you have the mother, you have the baby, and then you have the hospital to think of. So it's important for you to know what are your benefits. And the third, of course, is your finances. And the fifth is your social support. Because if you are, going to give birth, who's going to take care of your other kids? Who are the friends that you can turn to if suddenly your husband has to go somewhere? Who has to take care of your medical records? And of course, who's going to take care of your baby in the future? Because in pregnancy, you only not think in terms of what is happening now. Pag uwi mo ba sa bahay, paano na yan, paano ka magtrabaho? So social support is an important thing to be prepared.
Thank you so much, and I think this is really unique in the Philippines because I see I have friends who live abroad and that's it, who will take care of their kids when they're giving birth? This year we have our family members, we have friends, we can get help, and also now with the internet we have that community that you can get help from for advice, and this is why you're here, Mommy Rika, right, to talk a little bit more about your community. So you are a mommy blogger and apart of course from being an accomplished artist. And so yes, and could you tell me a little bit more about your first experience being pregnant, as a first-time mom? Did you have any of these fears or worries when you were pregnant?
Yes, of course. I mean, I first realized that when, so I found out I was pregnant, then the reality after, the whole honeymoon and you're like, wow, I'm pregnant, you begin to think, there's a life inside of me. So there's two of us. If anything happens, there's already two of us, not just me. So that's the first challenge for me, to really understand that there's someone inside of me. So the two of us, and it's a physical challenge. I mean, they say that when you get pregnant and then you give birth to a world changer because that baby will really change your world. I mean, you will not sleep the same anymore.
I need more concealer. Concealer's my best friend.
Umaakyat yung expense mo for cosmetics.
Fresh.
Diba? I mean, it just really changes your world both in a wonderful as well as a very challenging way. And the physical challenge is just so real. I think above all, the physical is just, you feel it. You don't just feel it in your heart, but I mean, I like what you were saying earlier, na not only the kid or the baby are we supposed to be concerned about. I mean, even the mom is a big factor here. Actually, the health of the mom is a major factor. And if I may share lang, I think some of you will know that I miscarried just a few months ago. And in my first pregnancy, I was completely fine, I was healthy, and I think because somewhere along the way, bumaba na yung health ko because, you're taking care of a baby, bumababa na siya. Yung second pregnancy ko, I didn't feel as strong. And I realized that, you know what, when you get pregnant, sinasabi ko nga to sa mga first-time moms, alam niyo, advice ko sa inyo, mag-gym na kayo. Kasi sa pagbuhat pa lang ng stroller, tsaka pagtupin nun, kailangan mo na ng muscles.
Basta tataba pa ng baby ko. Okay,
Diba?
3 months, 7 kilos na kaagad.
Exactly, ang taba ni baby, si mommy sobrang payat. Wala na nutrition.
Yeah.
Not bad, figure-wise, but nutritionally, if you're down, that's the first challenge for me. And I actually developed anemia when I
Your immune system also goes down.
Yes, everything just goes down with the mom, and it all goes down to the baby. And you have to rely on other things like information, education, your doctor, to actually cope up with all the changes that's happening to your body.
Let me share a little bit my experience when I was pregnant with my